Alright, so I thought I would make a quick YouTube video. So, I'm working on a 2014 Jetta TDI, the 6-speed stick in it. It's the 2.0. Long story short, I get a flashing glow plug light on the dash. The codes that show up, EGRs, not EGR. The DPF is plugged, and I quote, and exhaust gas temperature sensor 1, bank 1, false temperatures. So I was getting the cold engine, 70 degrees room temperature-ish. The other 3 exhaust gas temperature sensors are reading 150 to like down. EGT1 is the hottest, and then in line it goes 2, 3, 4. So EGT sensor 1 is before the turbo. Number 2 is before the DPF, I believe. Number 3 is after the DPF, and number 4 is like halfway back the exhaust system. So the temperatures starting the engine with sensor 1, 2, 3, and then 4 was like 1,394 degrees Fahrenheit. 200, 150, 110, 120, something like that. So, obviously, EGT sensor 1 is bad. And with my code reader, I have a little Bluetooth code reader that connects to my phone. I just went to live data and looked at the EGT sensor temperatures that it was reading. And with the car running in neutral park, I unplugged this one, and the temperature sensor number 2 spiked. It was like 150-ish, and it went up to 1,300 and something. Plug it back in, drops down to 150-ish. So this, I already disconnected and started unhooking it, but this is EGT sensor bank 1 before the turbo, which was 1,394, and I plugged and unplugged it several times, and it would go from like 200 to 0 to 1,394, 200 to 1,394, 200, 1,394, and it wasn't like, if I wiggled it, it would just jump all around. There was no real rhyme or reason to it, so I believe that sensor is actually bad. So that was the second one here. It's a black clip. Just undid it, and I started unclipping it. It goes back here with the other sensors inside this little plastic clip, inside this little plastic clip against the firewall, and then it disappears down here into the engine bay. So here's the end of it. It's got purple on the inside, black, 2 wires, not really rubbery, but it's one thing I want to yell at the German engineer that built this piece of crap car is, why do you have sensors where it looks nice and professional, and then right at the end by the connector, the insulation's not going all the way up into the plastic housing. And as an engineer who wires and programs robots, that drives me nuts. So anyways, I had to watch several YouTube videos and only found one that was even close to pertinent to this car, as everybody else had, I think, the CGAA engine, which is different, like the sensors are different than this one, or they got really lucky and they had, one of these sensors you can get at real easy on top go bad. Like, oh, look, just follow the cable. Oh, look, it's right here. Done. Yeah, no, not on this one. So, I'm going to show you what I had to do so far, and then I'll go under the car to show you. So, over here I have a pile of fun. I had pretty obvious to take the big plastic protective pan cover thing off the bottom. Just a bunch of T25, I think, screws. There was like 10 of them holding mine on. The 3 towards the rear of the car were way bigger than the front ones. Pulled the tire off. Then I watched the video. I pulled the passenger side CV shaft out. My light's in there. But so, I will tell you this, getting that CV shaft out is a pain. The way I ended up having to do it was, so here's the tie rod, the outer tie rod end. I probably need to go get a new one because I didn't realize, I just started impacting this off and I didn't realize that it moved a little bit and then it just started spinning. Inside the end of the screw is Torx, so you can use a regular open wrench, put a Torx on the end to hold the bolt still while you take the nut off, and then just give it a love tap from the bottom to pop it out. So I turned the tire all the way to the left. Took that off, thought that would be enough. No, it's not. So, also inside of here, the bottom of the steering knuckle, let me turn my flashlight on. The bottom of the steering knuckle, there's this 3-stud plate that sits in the bottom of the control arm. I took one nut off to look at it, so the holes that this, where's my finger? The holes that the stud goes into is a pretty tight fit on the bolt, so it shouldn't affect your alignment to remove and then reinstall this later, because it's not like they'll be off by more than half a millimeter, I would guess. I am probably going to just replace the outer tie rod end on this side when I'm done, because the bolt spinned on me when I was doing this. So let's go under the car. So this sensor is buried. If you're looking from the top of the car, here's the oil fill. This sensor is buried down in here. And follow the cable down. It's like the DPF. So here's the DPF, this ugly ass can that needs to be removed and reprogram my car. You follow it, it's on the driver's side of the DPF about halfway down the engine. So let's go underneath and I will show you the fun that we're looking at. So right here, these 2 bolts, we're holding this cover over the end of the drive shaft, the CV shaft. So I took those bolts out, took the cover out. That helps some. So there's where the CV shaft bolts in. I actually took a Dremel. I don't know if I would recommend this or not, but I took a Dremel and I rotated the tire and I marked the Dremel in a cutoff wheel. You can see the 3 little scratch marks there. So I marked 1 scratch mark all the way across the drive shaft, the spacing plate, and then this part of the transmission. I'm going to spin the opposite tire so you can see. So I marked a 3, I marked a 1, and somewhere on here, if you have a paint pen would probably work great too. I just want to make sure I put the CV shaft back on in the same orientation. There were also these little metal spacer rings. These. And they go from, hole to hole like this. And then there's another one that goes these holes, and a third one that goes these holes. I don't remember which holes, and I'm not sure if it matters. But, so if you look very carefully up in here, because it is incredibly difficult to see, right there is the end of the wire part of the sensor, and then it begins like a metal piece of the sensor with the nut on it. So I'm going to have to pull this EGR tube off, which comes over here to an Allen wrench. I'm going to take that off to take the collar and slide it over, and then take these 2 bolts off to pull the EGR tube off. And hopefully I can get a wrench up in there to take that stupid sensor out. The sensor is only $100, but so far I've spent quite a few hours disassembling my car and I haven't even gotten to it yet. Alright, so I use my flashlight turned off. Come on. There we go. So use a 5mm hex Allen wrench tip, whatever. Pull the EGR tube off, and now I can finally see the sensor. So if you follow that cable up, it's quite fun to do one-handed. Let's see if I can get a better angle. Alright, so there's the end of the sensor. The cable is black loose cable. Is the one I have disconnected up top, so you can see it goes behind. Is that the starter? No, I don't know what that is. Behind this thing, and then that's where the EGR tube was bolted in. I just put the bolts back in the hole so I don't lose them or put them in the wrong spot. So there is the sensor, and because of that stupid thing above it, which I think is the turbo is in the way of reaching it from the top, and the CV shaft, EGR tube, and a bunch of crap is in the way from reaching it from the bottom. So let's see if I can get this off with a 7. I've heard the videos I've watched previously say it's a 17mm wrench or socket to get it off. I went and bought a set of like brake line wrenches. They have, you know, like a wraparound wrench, so they have more bite. So I'm gonna unsnake I'm probably gonna disconnect it first, and then unsnake the cable, and then start re-snaking it and put the new sensor in. So here is the new sensor. This left-handed. I got it from O'Reilly's. You can buy them from a Volkswagen dealer. They're like $115 at Volkswagen, but it was like a 2-week wait to get one, where O'Reilly had it, you know, next day at 1 p.m. it'll be available. So you can see it's basically, take this rubber band off. I do not like how they package that exposed wire. Might see if I have any. Might see if I can slip that tubing over the metal, or I don't know. Yeah, so basically, oh, this would be the perfect time to see what size wrench it takes. So, 17mm line wrench. I'm hoping I can get it over like this. Tell you what, trying to do this left-handed while filming, it's not very easy. So anyway, the idea with these wrenches, if you've never used them before, is, hang on, this is driving me crazy. Let's see if I can prop my phone up on something. Okay, so fits perfectly. I get the camera to focus on it instead of the table. So the idea with these wrenches, if you've never used them before, is this is what the sensor will be like in the engine area. Come on, phone. Refocus, please. Thank you. So the idea is to put the wrench on, do a little bit of a turn, take the wrench back off, you know, rotate 60 degrees back to the left, wrench off, wrench on. So it's It's a relatively slow process, but you know, that's par for the course. That's what they do. Alright, so I finally got the old sensor out. You can see it is very corroded. Just for kicks and grins, I'm going to grab a multimeter and poke the two, the old versus the new one, set to ohms just to compare the difference between the two. Old one, new one, I have them laid out next to each other, and you can see the cables are almost the exact same length. Inside's purple, 2 connectors. Inside's purple, 2 connectors. They look the exact same. So I'm gonna ohm them just to see. Alright, so new sensor. I'm actually gonna feed it in from the top first because this top side is easy, so I know it gets installed into that metal clip, that plastic clip right there, and then it gets behind this and then plugged in over here. So I'm just going to feed it down the center end down that way. And up top here, I'm just going to take the end and kind of, I don't know, find something to snake it underneath temporarily, just to keep the sensor from accidentally getting pulled all the way down and then me having to try and fish it all the way back up. So the clip end is relatively large, and when I go underneath in a second, the first place I have to go through is a pretty tight fit. Alright, so now that I'm back under the car, here's the end of my new sensor. I got the cable running up there. So I need to go behind this, down, and I believe above this. I'm going to recheck my video footage, and up and over and in, right up there where the hole is. So this is going to be incredibly difficult to video and do at the same time, one-handed. But actually, I think this cable needs to come down, up top. I need to be further that way towards the driver's side because this DPF gets hotter than shit, and and that turbo also gets pretty warm, so it's gonna potentially melt stuff. Oh, I did take the end of this tube and slide it over the metal. Don't know if it's actually going to legitimately help or anything on the other, so that shortens the other end insulation a little bit. I'm probably going to take a little bit of electrical tape and put it around the other end, but that's way further away from the engine and the heat than this side, so I'm going to go up top, move the end of the cable back to this side of the turbo, and then rerun it down and come back. Yeah, so I didn't remember putting it this far over to the side. Let's slide this way over here. I'm going to actually just tuck it into the edge of this metal clip. Here. And then up top, I'm just going to kind of see if it'll reach. Just a little short. I'll pull myself a couple inches back upwards. So that there will reach. You know what, while I'm up here, I'm just gonna run the end how it goes and plug it in. So this went behind this little plastic thing, whatever the hell it is, and it was difficult to fit. So if you haven't invented a bunch of new swear words yet while working on this project, you will. So, I'm going to plug it in. I can't prop my phone up, but I'm just going to plug that clip in. I'm going to if you heard the satisfying little click noise. And then this thing slides. There's a notch on here. It should just pop back into this holder. I'm gonna leave it for right now because I'm gonna put some electrical tape around the end of that just because it's bugging me and I'm a little anal about this kind of stuff. I'd rather spend the extra 5 minutes now, put some electrical tape or shrink tubing or something on it than, you know, have it burn out in a month or two and be mad at myself and having to redo this job over again because I was lazy.